G'day guys and welcome to the Hunter's Campfire. Pull up a chair, get comfortable and enjoy some great company with Mark, Ian and Jono. Thanks to our friends at SSAA and Beretta Australia, we're here to help you make the most of everything you love about hunting, shooting and the great outdoors.
Take it away, Mark.
Good evening, gentlemen, and good evening, our special guest, Tom. How was everyone this evening?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Yeah, doing all right. Thanks, Mark.
That's good. Anything that we want to talk about? So with us tonight, as I mentioned, is Tom. That's Tom Kenyon, CEO of SSAA, so Sporting Shooters Association of Australia, Inc. So that's the national arm of SSAA. And we're obviously going to talk with Tom about a few different things, but I thought before we jump into that, we might do our usual quick roundup of what's been happening since we've returned from the territory.
I'll start because literally tonight I finished mincing about 20 kilos of buffalo mince. The last couple nights have been spent butchering it all up. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And so tonight I've finished mincing about 20 kilos and I put it into 500-gram bags and vacuum sealed it for the crew. So I've got Adam and Rob, I've got some mince and hurls. I've got some backstraps for you, mate, because I know I use some. Although one of the backstraps was rotten, but I will give you one of mine. How's that?
Yeah, right.
I'm not joking. I took a photo of it to prove it. But
Wow.
you
give a fella
some backstraps, and they come back rotten.
So when you said you minced 20 kilos, I went, Jesus, that was a bit of an unfair shuffle. But if that's for three of them, I suppose that's
for three.
okay.
That's across three, yeah. It was equally divided, Mark. I weighed it all out and I was,
highly coveted buffalo meat. And whilst we're there, old mate shooting them for the zoo and for pet meat, and we're fighting for the scraps and trying to get it home to make burgers. Guess we all treat it differently.
It took me a lot longer than 9 minutes, put it that way. But he's a pro, so we'll leave it to him.
Yeah. Hey, what sort of mincer were you using, Jono? Because I personally put an entire cow through an LD mincer. It took me quite some time. Small slabs like this at a time I had to cut them into, and it's like and by the end of that process, it's like, you peel a heap of onions and you just reek of onion. It's coming out your eyeballs and everything. It's just disgusting. That's what I felt like the meat after a whole cow went through the LD mincer. I just reeked of it. It's so feral. How are you feeling after 20-something kilos of mince?
Yeah, look, I've actually I've got a Kenwood, which I bought a couple of years ago, which is not a industrial grade or commercial grade by any means. I bought it out of desperation because I was actually in the middle of mincing a red deer when my previously commercial one failed. So I popped to Good Guys and bought a Kenwood, and it's actually been pretty good. It's actually been really, really good. I do pre-chill my meat. I pre-chill the mincer as well. So I chuck it in the freezer. It's been in the freezer for 24 hours. I find that makes a big difference and just does get you through the meat a lot quicker. I probably will upgrade at some point, but at this stage, it works fine. Well, if it ain't broke, why fix it? So
hang on to it.
As I said, I did 20 kilos tonight. It took me 2 hours, so 10 kilos an hour, which is what you would get out of a good commercial grade mincer. So I'm pretty happy with how that one went.
Okay. My mum had a Kenwood. My mum had a Kenwood and it lasted. Well, I've only just thrown it out. It's like 50 years old. It's as old as me.
Yeah, stuff.
It's been brilliant back then.
Wow. Because I got that one. It's Lavelle. It's a online only brand, and it does. I did 6 kilos in 15 minutes. Easy. Okay. Because I minced up 6 kilos, so which makes 48 burgers at our house. Okay.
Yeah, well, the good old LD mincer, when I was doing it, I think I was doing about 1 kilo an hour. And the first chunk of meat it was a long process, man.
That's right.
About the first or second chunk of meat that I put through had a bone in it, so it turned the whole thing inside out, broke it in half, and threw it across the kitchen. So I had to go back to LD to get a warranty job done, which they did. They didn't ask me why it was broken in 3 pieces and the cog was snapped in 2. Anyway, they just replaced it, and it's been going strong. It's good, but I'm more careful about bones.
Yeah, mine replaced an LD because it just couldn't hack it. And I also the vac seal was also an LD vac seal. I bought both of them, and they work really well.
That's good. Well, I haven't been doing mincing. I've outsourced that to my fellow South African friend who just loves meat jobs. So thank you for that.
I
Week has
subcontracted
been
it to my 9-year-old, by the way. So he loves doing it. So I just
Excellent.
subcontracted.
Nice. All right. Well, it's third hand by the time he gets here. I've given my car its fourth and fifth wash now since getting back, and it's still leaking dust out of the. I think I said on the last podcast, I pulled the light, the whole light assemblies out of the back of the car. I've got in, I unscrewed everything, pulled the whole light assembly out to get the dust out, so that it stopped leaking down all over the car. So I cleaned all of that out, put it all back again, and the damn thing still finds dust somewhere. Somewhere inside the insides of the car, it's leaking into the light fixtures or behind them, and just doesn't stop. It's still coming.
You need to find like a wind tunnel or something.
Far out, man.
Blow it up.
Dust. It's just unbelievable. I had to. I'm setting the car up because we were saying the guns are in the safe and the fishing rods are coming out. Because it's this beautiful time of year, spring. We're getting heaps of sun up here, and just feels like we should be at the beach. So I'm setting everything back up for the beach. So I was just I've got to get in behind the seats and just make sure that I've got an onboard compressor and all the ports are working. The compressor port was full of dust, and it's it's like inside the car underneath the you take back seats out, you put a drawer system all in underneath there. There's my compressor plug full of dust. I had to blow it out.
I haven't checked my spare wheel compartment. I better check that.
Yeah, I'd be full. You'd be carrying around like 30 kilos of dust under there.
Jono's on tailgate on the Everest has got a slight dent in it, and the dust was so thick that when the tailgate closed and opened, and it smoothly planed it. It planed it with such precision. You could see the dent in the dirt, the dust. It was almost like a clay model type of thing, It's like
I was trying to explain this to someone yesterday, how it's not normal dust. The stuff, it's so fine, but it layers on, like you say, it almost turns into a clay. Yeah, and it just builds up by inches and keeps on building. It doesn't fall off; just keeps going.
Yeah.
When the tailgate of the car.
Yeah, when the tailgate opened up, it made this perfect.
It's like a good concreter doing a brushed edge. It's just been fantastic.
God help anyone who gets stuck when it rains out there.
Yeah, that would
it'd be insane.
Yeah,
but
that'd be some kind of crazy
like it does for half the year.
Yeah, but being out there when the rain came, you'd be in serious trouble.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that's me. I'm set up for fishing. We've got Fraser booked, and might do a trial run out to Bribie Island. And
you think you're going to Bribie, yeah?
Yeah, next couple of weekends, I reckon I'll get an overnight at Bribie.
Let me know.
Just to test out the gear, make sure everything's working before we commit to a week on Fraser. Be good.
Well, I've literally just this evening bought a nice big shark reel. So, Facebook Marketplace, I got a pretty good deal. So, I'm keen to give that a test run before we go to Fraser and go target some sharks.
We'll drone fish. We'll drone fish your line out. Fly it out there.
No drones for me.
I'll fly. You watch. Yeah, okay.
So Tom, I was in Fraser in August, and I managed to crash my drone into the sea. It drowned. So it's a bit of a touchy subject.
So they don't mix well with water.
No. So you know what I am looking at? You can buy these little remote controlled boats, and there's one that you can get that can tow up to 9 kilos of bait out through the surf, and it's got GPS, it's got everything. So I'm thinking of one of those.
Talk to the Ukrainians; they're good at making.
That's right.
Drones that go
out. They got ones that can tow a lot more than 9 kilos.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. No way. Well, speaking of fish, that's where I was today. I went out with Adam and my boys for school holidays. Went down jumping pin. Had a great fish. Got into the tail, and the boys. Aiden was successful. Lice, unfortunately, couldn't get one in the boat. So I've just filled them up, and we're fish caking on the weekend. Funny thing is, though, the youngest is really not that excited about fishing, but he loves boats.
Oh, right.
So I said to him, so he goes, Adam, can you go as fast as you can?
Oh, that's the wrong thing.
He loved it. He loved it. He loved it. He was very excited by it. He sat up front giggling himself crazy. And when we got back to the ramp, I won't say how fast Adam's going because people listening, but we got back to the ramp. I said, how was that? And he goes, it was pretty good. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, it could have been better. And I said, what do you want? He goes, if Adam let me drive the boat. So
it's an expensive hobby.
He's a Bodie.
Yes.
He wants to be a Bodie. So,
Possible it's more expensive than shooting.
It
Yeah.
definitely is more expensive. Yes. I just sold my boat to upgrade it. Still waiting for the right boat to come along.
Yeah, we spotted the boat you're upgrading to.
Oh, did you? What did you see?
It was some Evolution center console thing.
Oh, Evolution 552. Yeah. So
Adam pointed it out to me. He said, that's the boat I'm trying to get John to buy.
yeah, there's a couple. Adam and I have been doing some boat shopping. So he's very good at spending other people's money. Put it that way. So
Yeah, well, I was disappointed that I didn't see the Tasman.
oh, what did he tow it with?
He
That?
towed it with the BT50. I was really excited to see the new
He needs
Tasman.
shocks. He needs shocks
Yeah, well,
desperately.
it's he's getting springs done. So
No, he's had some extra leaf. He had an extra leaf.
yeah, he's getting
put in
an
today.
extra leaf put in. So
It's been put in.
Tom,
Yeah.
our friend Adam, has just bought the Tasman, the new
Like Kia Tasman, yeah.
and he got the one of the aftermarket canopy companies that make the trade style box.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, fiberglass
aluminium
canopy,
canopy.
the gull wing type things. He actually approached them and said, "Do you want my car for a model promo?" And they said, "Sure." So he's just one of the first ones getting around with this on it, and we're really keen to see it in the flesh.
Yeah, I'd be keen to see how they go. I mean,
Yeah.
They look good.
They
and
look
they've
very nice.
always, I mean, they make good cars here in Hyundai. They're reliable, you know. So we'll see. And I suppose it's their first you venture into a proper four-wheel drive, but as opposed to all.
I think with them entering the market, they'll catch a lot of attention just because the ute taxes push prices up so much.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and these guys will enter the market at a point where everyone else was.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of them out there, just pure price point.
Because I'm looking to buy next year. They're already, there's heaps of Navara's dropped, a few $1,000. Everyone's dropping. So I'm hoping that's what it's going to do. Hoping it's going to create downward pressure on all of them.
Yeah, well, it's got to. I mean, I think we're paying too much for utes, to be honest.
Yeah.
Cars in
It
general.
just, it was sort of demand, and they got away with it, and they got away with it for a long time, and now they're going to have to deal with it. And I think over time they're going to have to deal with this tax as well. So
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
Nope, that'll do for now. Let's
Nope,
talk to Tom.
Okay. So let's talk to Tom. So, I mean, I suppose the best place to start, Tom, is how about you give us a bit of a rundown on how your involvement in shooting, and I suppose we work towards you taking on the CEO role with SSAA Inc.
yeah, sure. So I started shooting, I think when I was about one of my uncles showed me how to shoot when I was about 6, and then when I was probably around 10, a friend of my dad's lent us an air rifle to store for a little while, and we lived on a 100-acre property up in the Adelaide Hills, and I would just take that out and I'd just wander around and basically taught myself to, my uncle taught me the basics, but I just practiced, and that's how I learnt. And then I've been sort of doing it ever since, on and off. At school holidays, I'd go and work on farms in Victoria mostly. And, we'd shoot at every opportunity there, rabbits mostly. And, did bits and bobs. I was very fortunate at one point to be working for a senator who was a mad keen shooter, still is actually. I'm still friends with him. And he used to bring down, he was in the parliament, federal parliament, and he used to bring down federal members of parliament to South Australia and take them shooting. So I'd get to go out with him and these other guys, and it was great fun. I had a great time. So I've always done it. I got into pistols probably about 10 or 12 years ago, and I've just been shooting ever since. I think, and it held me in good stead when the job came up. So I'd been, I did lots of odd jobs when I was at uni. Started doing it as a jackaroo in Queensland, and then worked my way through fruit picking and working in a service station, just all the stuff that you do to get money when you're young and you want to travel a bit. So I did all that, did a couple of degrees, and then one of which was environmental management. Well, I've never used that professionally. And then I got into politics. I was staffing for a little while for this senator and also for some of our state ministers when we got into the state government here. And then eventually I got elected. I was 12 years in the South Australian Parliament, was a minister for 3 of those, various portfolios, and then including sport and recreation. So that was good fun. And then, I worked in a variety. Once I lost my seat in 2018, I've done a couple of different jobs in innovation and cybersecurity. And then a friend of mine sent me the ad for the SSAA. I just was very excited by the opportunity to do it. And I sort of, I think the important thing for me was that I've been shooting for such a long time. I've always enjoyed it. I've taught my kids to shoot, and it's up to them whether they want to do that or not. And my daughter's gone and got her license. My the youngest son is in the process of getting his license. I don't think my eldest son will, but I just went away shooting with him. I just got back today, actually. We've been away for a couple of days up in Victorian High Country. And I want them to be able to do it if they want to, and to be able to pass it on to their kids should they choose to do that. And there's always pressure on shooting. There's always pressure on regulation to, make it harder and harder to do shooting, and either target or hunting or whatever it is. And I just think that's a mistake, and I wanted to do something about it. And this was the opportunity to do it. So it came along at the right time. It was the right job, and I had the right skills and experience to take it up. Yeah.
No, I think we, certainly when we spoke, that I didn't realise that you'd been involved in politics, especially at a ministerial level. That must give you a real view of the world that I think a lot of people in the shooting and hunting areas just don't get. Can you give us a little bit of what is the real life of a minister like? I'm pretty sure it's not you and Sir Humphreys, but
well, I mean, there is an element of that, right? So there's always this interaction of between. I mean, they took it to the farcical level because that's what was fun.
What's the Australian one?
I know what you mean. The one with Rob Stitch and Utopia, I think.
Utopia.
So, yeah, and look, there's an element of truth to it as well, and that there's this tension between the bureaucracy and the ministry, and the government is the elected officials, and then there's the sort of government apparatus, which is all the department and the public servants and everything else. And there's always a tension between the two. But it's a very frantic job. Like you are working a lot, all the time you're on. It's very hard on families. So in the end, because I had a marginal seat, you actually have to work harder in your seat to win your seat. And then, then I was a minister. And so I was a local member in my marginal seat, working hard to hold that. Then I was a minister and, then husband and father. And you can sort of do, there are 3 full-time jobs there really. And you can do 2 of them, but you can't do all 3. And in the end, I got to the point where the family was losing out too often. And so I decided to resign from the ministry, which is what I did. And I spent the last 4 years as the government whip in the South Australian Parliament, which was great fun. That was a good job. But it's very rewarding. You get incredible access to people in terms of, you just get to meet people and see things that you just wouldn't in any other walk of life, really, unless you worked in that industry. People are always happy to show you around their factory or their business or whatever it is. And so you get a great sense of the economy and the society that you're in. And it's really, really intriguing. And generally people are very good. So, there's always idiots in any endeavor, but for the most part, it's good people. Most people in Parliament are there for the right reason, trying to improve the country. And people have competing ideas about how do you do that or how to go about doing that. But in the end, they are trying to do the right thing, and they have, and it's just the thing that it's hard for people to understand, I think, mostly about politics is politicians are just ordinary people like anyone else. They're not a special breed. They have all the same weaknesses and foibles and strengths that we do as, in everyday humans, and there's some astoundingly talented people and there's some not so talented people. And the full breadth of that human experience is in politics as well, which is really the point of it, right? So you don't have some elite group of people running around controlling everything. And there's always that tension between sort of the technocrats, people who, trying to just make decisions based on technical data, and then the people who want things to turn out in a certain way and have a view about how things should be done.
So with that thought in mind, with a hunting and shooting flavour attached to it, you hear it all the time. Write a letter to your member, send something to your member. Everything that pops up, send something to your member. How is that received from that side? And I was going to say your side, but that's another life ago. But how is that received? How important is it that we actually do that? And often you'll see, here's an example letter, just top and tail it, send it in. Is that the right way to go about it? Like what is the message that we need to give to the shooting community about taking that seriously, writing to your member?
Well, firstly, they should, right? So you're right when you say that they should take it seriously because it is effective. So when and especially effective in numbers. So if one person, there's a rule of thumb in politics that for every one letter that you receive about a topic, there's 20 other people who agree with them. So about 5% of the population will take the time to write a letter to their local member of parliament. And the more you can personalize it, it's more about writing it in your own words than it is about being eloquent and making the best, making some sort of lawyerly argument or anything like that. You don't need to do that. You just got to say what you think as clearly and as simply as you can and politely. If you abuse people, politicians like anyone, if you abuse them, well, they're just going to say, why should I listen to you? Polite and respectful is the way to write. Put your points across. You don't need to be a Rhodes Scholar. You just put your point across and send it in. And that there's incredible value in that. And if you think about that, for every, one person is 20. So 100 people is 2,000. And that's, and depending on the size of an electorate, you're starting to be interesting at that point. My electorate was about 25,000 voters. So if I got, the equivalent letters of 2,500 people, I'm suddenly at 1% of the population starting to think something. And that's when you hold your seat by 2 or 3%, that's a meaningful number. So and politicians also talk. So in their own parties, they'll start talking about, are you getting a lot of letters about this, particular shooting issue or hunting issue? Yeah, I am, and it's like, okay, we've got to be careful about that because there's a bunch of people out there who will be unhappy. Really, all politicians are trying to do is make people happy all the time. And that's impossible to make everyone happy all the time. So they've always got this balancing act and part of that is not pissing off people, so you don't want to annoy people on an issue. So you might get angry about the bus timetable, but if you don't catch a bus, you're just thinking, well, that's, they're reducing the number of buses in my suburb. That's bad. But if you never catch the bus, it's not going to change your vote. If you do catch the bus, it is going to change your vote. And so they're always looking out for issues that will change people's votes because they know there's only certain things that will actually change your vote. And so that's one of our challenges, I think, as a community, a shooting community, is to vote according to our sport. So, vote to protect the interests of our sport. And it's easy to get caught up in arguments about immigration or economy or healthcare or anything else, whatever the argument is at the time, and to start making judgments on that. But really, if we want to stay shooting, and if shooting is important in our lives, then we need to vote to protect that. And so we need to take that into account as well. And it needs to be right up the top of the list, before most other things, if not any other thing.
Yeah, I think Mark put it really well in a previous conversation we had about this. Shooting may not be the most important thing. Healthcare and those sorts of things are probably way up there in terms of importance, but they're getting taken care of anyway. I think was kind of the point you were trying to make earlier, Mark. Those things will happen. It doesn't matter which party gets in. Your healthcare's not going to go away. You need to start putting these other bits, these lifestyle things in front of it. And that's
and there's plenty of other people who worry about. It's really only shooters who are going to worry about shooting. There's plenty of other people that worry about healthcare and everything else. So
that's right. That was my point. Whilst there may be some ideological differences, no party's going to run a platform that says we're getting rid of healthcare. No party's going to run a platform is we're not going to build infrastructure. There might be it might be what type of infrastructure or something like that, but things the services that we take for granted are going to continue. The things that, so in a way, you're not really deciding those things. You're deciding how those things are flavored. But when it comes to shooting and hunting, you are in a way deciding if that exists or not.
Yeah.
So it actually becomes more important, I think. And we are very much in agreement that you need to vote. Hunting and shooting needs to be a filter that you apply to your voting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, very good way.
You've got to look through that lens or whatever you want to do. But so that might mean that you need to actually, and if you don't have that, I think, we've spoken about this before, taken your point about that 3 to 5%. Become a noisy 3 to 5% because there's real power in that.
Yeah, that's right.
I worked in the other side. I worked for I ran a correspondence team that got the correspondence that went to the ministerial office.
Yeah, right.
And I can tell you, that there is, I make a joke once that basically, we spent $45,000 tracking down a $1.50 bus fare. There is a lot of energy into certain things. So if thinking that they don't get any attention, and often the attention they'll get is a thank you. You might get thank you for your inquiry, or thank you for this. This is what's happening. Right again. So look, I wasn't really happy about that. I don't say keep the process going.
Well, that's true, especially for ministers. So for ministers, there's a whole apparatus behind them, as you said, Mark, that deals with correspondence, and you will almost always get a reply to any correspondence you send to a minister. Now, sometimes it's a standard letter, for each issue, there's just a standard letter that you send back. But for instance, I read every letter that ever got sent to me. I read it and then read the reply, and often edited the reply so that it better matched the letter that was sent to me. Now, not everyone does that, but for every letter that comes up to you to sign, there's a briefing paper attached to you explaining the background of the issue and, who the person is that's written to you, if they know, what they're worried about, and, what the government's doing on this particular issue. So, there's actually quite a bit of effort that goes into replying to correspondence at the government level. And it's absolutely worthwhile writing to your minister, as well as your local member of parliament. Now, again, as Mark said, you may not like the response you get, but persist. Persistence is important with government, and we're seeing that in Western Australia. The persistence we didn't let the issue die down, and now we're starting to see some results. But I think we'll get to that later on at that discussion if you want. But did you want to talk more about that sort of 3 to 5%?
Before you do that, because I definitely want to go there, but dare I ask, does AI and Copilot and the things that are out there now that help you draft these type of things, are there new ways to create, I guess, campaigns that help us communicate with the ministers?
Yeah, I think if you can use
is this a dangerous conversation?
Well, it's a new development, right? So since I left Parliament, this has come up. So I'm not sure how. I imagine people are already using AI to help them draft letters to their MP and their minister, and that's no bad thing. I think my experience with AI is it can be very inaccurate, and you have to be sure of what the information that it spits out, because I've had I've been sort of testing it for accuracy and seeing some just blatant untruths. We're just wrong.
For sure.
So you're going to be across that. But if it's a matter of just shaping your arguments, then that's fine. And I think, don't be afraid to use it. But really the value is not in, you really don't need to have the most polished argument. It's really just weight of numbers. So you just need to have as many people that write in about the same topic in their own words. And that's what creates the effect. It's not so much the weight of your argument or the eloquence of what you've written. I mean, that it's nice to read a nice, well-written letter, but in the end, it's like, well, I got one letter about this, so it's not that important in my electorate. And I got far out, I got 500 letters about this, and it is important in my electorate.
Stack the numbers.
Yeah,
and really, it's the number of people that write is more important than the eloquence of the words they use to write with.
Yeah. Yeah,
very much so. And as you said, it doesn't have to be an argument. You're actually expressing your concerns.
Yep, correct.
They are your concerns. You don't need to justify why they're your concerns. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So if you're concerned about it, say so. I think it's
and be clear about if you can be clear about the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
That just specify it and put it in there. Again, you don't need to write pages and pages. A simple letter can be very effective. I would say handwrite, but people just don't do that anymore.
You wouldn't be able to read mine, right?
I just had to handwrite a couple of birthday cards. It was like my arm was going to fall off.
It's
I
so
don't think
true.
anyone could do a handwritten
And like I looked at it, went,
ER
what is
exam
this?
anymore.
So I looked at it, I went, my God, I'm a doctor or something. I can't even read my handwriting. So yeah. If you have nice hand penmanship, use it.
A nice.
If you're like the rest of us, maybe figure out another mechanism. Is that a great segue to jump into WA?
Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
Before we do
Ian's gone somewhere.
No, I was thinking about where to come back to the importance of numbers, the 3 to 5% discussion that we talked about.
That's what
earlier.
I was going to bring up.
Yeah, I think that's something
that
people should understand, because a real light bulb moment there.
Yeah. So I'll go into it, and I've been talking a bit about this, and you guys have discussed it as well. So, an electorate is defined as a marginal electorate if 5%, if it has a swing of 5% or less to lose, or to change the seat. So, if you have 100,000 people in a seat, if 5,000 people need to change their vote to change the result in that electorate, that's a marginal seat. But often they're much less. The margins are much narrower than that. They might be a few hundred votes or a few, 1,000 or 2,000 votes. And if you've got an electorate, federal electorates are often over 100,000 in population. So if you've got, you can have a margin of say 500 or 600 in 120,000 seat, and that's not a lot. Not a lot of people need to change in percentage terms, not a lot of people need to change their vote for that seat to change hands. And so I think if you can have, at the moment, 3.5% of the population has a firearms license in Australia, and that is actually weighted more towards the outer suburbs and rural and regional areas. But if you can have like a uniform 5% across the country of people who had a firearms license, so every seat had 5% of people in it who had a firearms license, you can start influencing a bunch of seats if people start voting according to, taking their firearms ownership into account when they start voting. Then you can start influencing seats and influencing governments, because, if you've got 10 seats that are marginal to change government, you can, and if you think you've run a good enough campaign to change that just by talking to shooters, well, suddenly, governments are going to take a lot of interest in what they're doing, and they're going to, mostly they'll just do nothing. Like the easiest thing in politics is to do nothing. So if they don't piss off shooters, they know that then they're going to vote on other issues, and so they'll just leave it alone. And that's really the ultimate thing, is to have this deterrent where no one wants to go any further with tightening up gun laws, because there's too many people who will get too annoyed about it and will do something about it. So that number, that 3 to 5% of people, is a critical number for us. And the closer we are to 5, the better. And if we go over that in the future, fantastic. But my target is to get to that sort of 5% of the population owning a firearms license, and we're actually going through this process internally at the moment of mapping where our members live by electorate. So we'll be very anonymized, but it'll be like, well, we have 77 members in this seat, and we have 105 members in this other seat, and so we can work out where our people are and start helping them become more effective in the way they interact with their local government and with their local member.
Because you don't need to win all those 10 seats, so you just need to turn one or two.
You just need to be able to, they need to consider it, right? So what you need them to do is to think, hang on a sec, we know that there are 10 seats that change government, and there are 5%, and the margins are all less than 5%, and 5% of people in those seats own a firearms license. Do we really want to change the laws around firearms to tighten them up and annoy that 5% of people and put all of those seats in jeopardy? Because then they've suddenly got to fight much harder in those seats, and they've got to do everything. It's all about how the calculation the government will make about whether to proceed with a certain bit of legislation or not. And then it's about the consequences if they do. If they make the wrong calculation and they make the wrong decision from our point of view, then we've got to make sure that we act on that and make the and then go and change the result, so they pay the price for it.
So, I mean, if thinking about that, which is, so we're kind of getting away from the idea then it's about a party. It's more of the fact that you're actually becoming an active voter. It's not it's not I'm going to vote for this party. No, I'm going to vote for this particular topic. So,
correct.
But you're becoming astute shopper. I'm shopping my vote here because I'm going to vote for the people who are best going to support my pursuits, rather than I lean this way or I lean that way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, correct. The best thing, in order to get results, the best thing you can do is abandon long-held party affiliations. Now, and that's true for any topic, and in any seat. So, the seats that get the most attention are the marginal seats, because they can change the government. So the safe seats, the safe Labor seats and the safe Liberal seats tend to get overlooked a little bit. But people persist in voting the way they have voted and the way their fathers voted and their fathers' fathers voted. And we're just a Labor family, so we always vote Labor, or we vote Liberal because we own a small business or whatever it is. Well, that might be true, but they may not be the best for shooting, or they may not even be the best for small business. Just because you think they are, they might not be, right? So breaking away from party affiliations makes you a lot more valuable in terms of if all of our members can break away from party affiliations and vote the topic of firearms ownership and firearms regulation, then we will become very much more effective.
I remember Bob Catter said something of the same when he was talking. I was listening to him, and he said when he I think he was a national, he couldn't get an ear of the minister or anything like that. When he became an independent, all of a sudden everyone wanted to talk to him, and and vice versa, because he was now, okay, that's no longer something we can take for granted.
Yeah. Parties play a really important role, and I'm not necessarily opposed to parties. I think parties provided a stability to the Australian parliaments that wasn't there before. I mean, if you look back, I know the South Australian example well, so I can talk about it. But in 1856, I think it was, South Australia got responsible government. And in the first 50 years of responsible government, the government changed every year, basically, on average every year, because there were parliaments full of independents, right? There were no parties whatsoever, and there were 47 independents trying to form governments, and they would rise and fall, and so there was chaos and no continuation or continuity of government or anything. Around the 1900s, political parties started to form. So the Labor Party formed in the 1890s, and then other parties formed in opposition to it very soon after. And then suddenly you started seeing the full governments last the full 3 years of a parliamentary term, as they were at the time. And then, then suddenly for the first time a party got re-elected. And so you had a 2-term government, and you started to see stability in the parliament, and you started to see more rational policy making and a greater delivery of services and everything else. So parties have played a really important role. But that doesn't mean they're infallible, and it doesn't mean that you should just stick to them just because you always have. That moving your vote makes them change what they do, and that's how you keep parties in line by being prepared to switch your vote.
I suppose my point was that, whilst we have parties that obviously align or represent shooters, for most people they don't exist in their particular electorate.
Yeah, correct.
So that's not a voting. So yeah, sure. If I was in a seat that had, the shooters, fishers, or farmers or something like that, that was obviously aligned with the shooting and hunting, then I would have a voting option. What we get from a lot of people is, I don't have that option. I mean, I like to say, my particular seat, we're the last green seat in Australia.
That's unfortunate.
They said, no, we got it up on a hill in a cage so we can go visit it. Like the thylacine, that's the last one,
It was funny watching that seat teeter on the edge. I was hoping they would.
Yeah, well, that's a really important point. It is a marginal seat now. And I think so. I think that's it. That point is, if you don't have the obvious voting choice, be an astute voter.
But that brings it back. That brings us back to that where we started off about the importance of writing to your member, right?
Yeah.
Because MPs will respond, like they will change their. I don't want to sound too cynical, but most MPs don't actually believe in a lot. They have a few core beliefs, but for the most part, they don't have very strongly held policy beliefs on just about anything. And so, if it looks like it's just easier for them to leave something live, they'll do that. They're not. Most of them are not ideologues trying to, impose a set of principles regardless of what people want. I mean, there are some people like that, and they tend to be more in the Greens than in other parties, for instance. But there's some in the Labor Party, there's some in the Liberal Party. But for the most part, people are fairly flexible, and that's good and bad. But if you use it well, it works for us, and that's where the discipline of voting comes in, being prepared to vote the right, to vote, taking your sport into account. Rather than just looking at anything else that comes up, and it's also why because if you live in one of those states where you don't have the option of a shooters, farmers, and fishers party, well, that's why being in contact with your local member is really important. Is just keeping in contact, keeping the issue up there, letting them know that they can't afford to get that decision wrong when they start making decisions about it.
So I think I want to get back to this WA issue.
Yeah, we'll leave this part of politics alone. Let's get into the meaty stuff.
It's an extension of politics, isn't it? That's exactly what it is.
We're holding the Queensland subject till last, are we?
Oh no, we can do Queensland.
No, go WA. It's a.
I think understanding because one is it's the other side of the country, so we're not seeing a great deal about it. The other thing is, for most of us, it's the Facebook feed is where we get, where it comes in. We're not criticising Facebook as a meaningful and accurate way of reporting something, but it'd be good to get a slightly, I don't know, more enlightened view of what's happening.
Full of use. So the brief history is there was, I'm sure everyone knows this. Yeah, there was a shooting in Western Australia, Floreat. There was a man who had a collector's license and took one of his firearms that he held on his collector's license. I'm not sure if this has been to court yet or not, so I'm going to say allegedly just in case. But allegedly, shot two people, neither of whom was his wife or daughter who he was allegedly looking for, and that precipitated a whole bunch of changes to the Firearms Act, and they were very ill thought through changes. Many times just for they were changed for the sake of being seen to do something. So they increased limits and really very strict limits on how many firearms you could have. They changed the storage requirements so that they're out of step with the rest of the country. They cracked down on a bunch of firearms that were otherwise fine in other states. And they even made it difficult for juniors. The process for being a junior shooter is now very difficult. There's no junior license in Western Australia, as there are in some states. There's no, a lot of states you can just supervise your child shooting as long as you're there with them. Can't do that in Western Australia without some sort of accreditation in some instances. So especially at ranges. So SSAA has a lot of ranges, and it's really affected the way people use ranges. Anyway, this was rushed through the Parliament. There's a bunch of accompanying regulations that sort of give the detail to the Act. They were implemented, and it's caused a lot of chaos. And at the same time, they've been trying to introduce a portal, like an online setup, right? So you can change your address details and everything else online, which is a good thing, right? So making it easier for people to manage the paperwork associated with owning firearms is a good thing. But they've rushed the portal as well, and they're having a lot of issues with it, and that's just fed into all of this. So in the lead up to the Western Australian election, which was earlier this year, the SSAA got involved, and the national office donated money to the state office in Western Australia to run that campaign. And it was, a good chunk of cash. And the thinking in the Western Australian state office was that they would lock in behind the National Party, because right from the start, the National Party were supportive of our position, that these weren't needed, that they should be repealed, that They were right on it right from the start, and they didn't equivocate. The Liberal Party was not good. They supported the change. Not that there was many of them at this point, because remember Mark McGowan wiped out the Libs in that state election in Western Australia, but which gave them the opportunity to do this. Right? They, when you control the upper and the lower house, you can get anything through and you can rush it. You don't need to pay attention to people's complaints, and that's what happened. And but the Libs were not good. They were not strong on it, and so we backed the National Party in, and they had a successful election. They went from 3 seats in the lower house to 6 seats in the lower house. They went a little bit backwards in the upper house, but that's because the upper house voting system changed, and that affected them. Because it had previously been the upper house had previously had sort of sub-electorates in the state. So most states, Queensland doesn't have an upper house, but those states that do generally are elected across the whole state is one big electorate. But in Victoria and Western Australia, they had this system where the state was broken down into regions and elections inside the regions. And but by changing, and the Nats did well in that system. So by changing the system, they sort of backed down in the upper house. But that's a side note. Nerds like me that like electoral systems and voting systems get interested. But the real trick has been, so it was a live issue going into the election and persistently so, and they had to keep this was as the time they were introducing some of this stuff, it started to go wrong on them, and the government was defending its own legislation right up until the day of the election, which was not the plan. Like, the plan was they would introduce these changes, they would get a whole bunch of kudos from the electorate for being tough on guns, it would all go quiet, and then they'd march through to the election and it would be all great. And that's not what happened. So they were continually harassed all the way through to the election. There were significant swings in seats. Even if they didn't change hands, there were significant swings in seats. And the Nats did particularly well in those swings. And then it's still an issue now. So the election was, earlier this year. I think it was in March. And we're still talking about it. And earlier this year, in the upper house, one of the MPs moved for there to be a review of the legislation, and that was successful. And it was funny because for the vote on whether to review the act or not, the Greens even voted to review the act. And so our joke at the time was, this act is so bad, even the Greens want to fix it.
And then isn't there like the marijuana party?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
there's
so
a really interesting whole group of people who got behind it.
Well, that's right, and it's because the firearms community had been so successful in Western Australia, and SSAA being a big part of this, it's so successful keeping this issue alive even after the election that everyone was trying to jump on board. So, even these minor parties were trying to get involved in the action and make themselves relevant. So minor parties are always trying to attract, try and segment the population and try and target certain groups so that they can, attract their vote. And so the marijuana party guy got involved, and everyone voted in this regard. But I mean, there was I think what got the Greens over the line in the end was that even Aboriginal groups were complaining they couldn't hunt on their own land because of the way that laws were written about access to land and who could own a firearm and who couldn't and everything else. So they're going to need to make changes at least to the regulation, and SSAA recently presented at the hearings for this review, and Paul Fitzgerald, who is our president in Western Australia, has really been at the forefront of these arguments, constantly talking to the police, trying to get them to change the way they do things. And so it's more than likely there will be changes to the regulations, and it's possible. I previously didn't think it would be possible to change the Act, but I think there may even be changes to the Act. And I think particularly around junior shooting, giving junior licenses and for target shooting, and I'd like it to be for hunting as well, but at least target shooting. So at least kids can learn to shoot, in a safe environment with, good supervision and everything else. So that's where we're at. It's a potted history of Western Australian firearms laws, but it's. I give a lot of credit to our state president over there, Paul, who's really, really worked hard for a very long period of time to just keep this bubbling along and cause trouble for the government to the point where they have to try and do something about it.
And
that was,
on that point, you go.
Sorry, you go. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I think I spotted today that they had their time in Parliament today, wasn't it? Was it only today or this week?
Yeah. So we had the SSAA was in last week. So there's been a series of hearings over the last week or so.
Yep.
And last Wednesday we sent the links out. You can go and see the vision. So you can, if you wanted to go and the SSAA members would have got an email, I think on their Wednesday email, which I think had the links in it. So you can go and look at the people witnessing. They're called witnesses, being witnesses to the committee.
I was just going to say, and as part of that, with the SSAA getting involved, did you see an uptake in membership in WA where people are standing together? Or
Paul over there, Fitzgerald he's quite dynamic. So he was already working on growing his membership anyway because he understands the importance of membership. So he's been doing lots of things, but certainly the situation with the law changes have helped because there's much greater emphasis on you have to have a genuine reason to own as you do in every state, but they've really cracked down on it. So. And also, if you are target shooting, you can have more firearms than if you're just hunting. So, so a lot of people have been joining so they can own more firearms than they could if they were just hunting. I think the limit is 5 for hunting and 10 for target shooting. So, so we have seen an uptick in membership there. It means good, obviously, to have more members.
Strength in numbers, of course.
Yeah, that's right. So. And Paul's been very vocal. He's on radio a lot, and in the paper, particularly in country paper, he's been doing a lot with them. Well, a lot of farmers are not members of SSAA or any organisation for that matter. So we'd like more, farmers and people who own properties to become members as well.
Okay. So at this, just I'm trying to get an understanding of that junior. So there's real. To all extents and purposes, there isn't a junior license anymore.
Yeah, they don't. The way they've worded the legislation is that if you're travelling from interstate and you want to shoot in Western Australia, you can't bring your firearms over with you because they don't recognise your ownership of those firearms and interstate licenses. So that's one thing. But then they also, the way on the juniors, the way they've set it up is that it's around who can supervise the child to learn how to shoot at a range. And in some instances, parents aren't allowed to supervise their children, teaching them to shoot at a range. It has to be, a range officer with, appropriate coaching and everything else. And which can mean, if your child is quite good at, let's say they've suddenly discovered that they can shoot clay pigeons really well, and you've got to train a lot to get good at that. And so you could be down there every day down at the range. You have to have, an accredited junior supervisor down there, and the parent can't do it. And it just makes it more and more difficult for juniors to shoot. So, that needs to be rectified. I think there's a very good chance the government would do something around junior shooting in terms of just making it more practical for going about doing it. I'm hoping they'll make changes to, allow recognise interstate licenses and everything else. Because, you can travel freely between states in the most part. Like, I just went over to Victoria, took my rifles, no problem. It's always easier.
We just got back to the Northern Territory.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you've done that in road trip.
Most of our, well, not most, but many of our listeners are Queenslanders who hunt in New South Wales because of the public land.
Yeah.
So
and that's easy, right? Going backwards and forwards is no problem because
I thought that was part of the National Firearms Agreement.
Yeah, well, but this is the problem with what Western Australia have done is they stepped outside the National Firearms Agreement. They've sort of they haven't. I mean, they've gone further, than the National Firearms Agreement, but they've also stopped. I mean, it's a natural thing to recognise interstate licenses of some. Like, no one questions an interstate truck driver.
Driver's license.
Like
yeah, that's right.
Or even internationally.
Yeah, that's why.
Well,
that's true.
You've got to get a visitor's license just so that it's recorded, but you're not going and sitting there safety
No,
tests and things like
it's
that.
just
No, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and I don't know about other states, but in South Australia, we've got arrangements where, you can go, people can come from interstate and they can be, as long as they're with a licensed shooter here, it's no problem. They can bring their firearms and they can do what they need to do and have a great time. So, yeah, I think there was just so much emphasis on being seen to do something and being seen to be the toughest that they just didn't think through the practicalities of what they were doing, and it made for an act that is just ridiculous, and it's proving to be ridiculous in the way when they try and apply it, and it's consuming huge numbers of police resources over there, and you've got to have your property registered to have firearms on it so that you can shoot foxes on your own property, for instance, and then they try and tell you what calibers you can and can't use on your property instead of leaving that to a decision for you to make safely, knowing your own property and all of these sorts of things. And they were sort of putting limits on calibers, for instance, on properties, meaning that if you had, a smaller block, and they were unreasonably large, some of the limits they were putting on. And if you had a smaller block with a pig problem, you might not be able to use a caliber sufficient to deal with pigs, and things like that. So, yeah, they're trying to work all of that out now, and that's part of the role of the parliamentary committee and the review is to try and sort some of these things out. So, I think there's an excellent chance of getting regulation changed. And I think there's an outside chance of getting legislation changed. So,
one thing that I have noticed a couple of times it's come across a couple of different platforms too. So, is the medical requirement and the pushback that's getting from the medical association.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they don't want to do it because they don't want to be held to account for. Because you would have seen what happened to that in Sydney. There was that knifing, that sort of guy went crazy with a knife and was stabbing people all around a shopping centre, allegedly. And then in the inquest, his poor old psychologist, who 10 years earlier had said, "Gee, you made great progress. I think you can come off your meds now, or you can reduce your dosage," or made some changes to his medication treatment. Was being held to account 10 years after the event when this guy had probably gone 9.5 years without any issues and suddenly had a relapse or whatever else. And the poor old psychologist was being held to account for a good clinical decision they made 10 years ago. And I think a lot of GPs are saying, well, what if we certify someone is safe and something changes in their life, they have a divorce or something like that, and they take it very badly and they go and do something crazy? Are we going to be held to account?
The one that, that's the kind of the devil's advocate one that often gets thrown around. But one I found really interesting was that they said that it may very well stop people seeking treatment.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting one. They're saying, look, we're talking about the fact that, in rural communities, we've got a public health problem around mental health. Could this very, very well be the reason to stop people coming to see someone because they think of these further implications that it has, in regards to the firearms that they hold on their property? I thought that was a really interesting point. It might drive people to not go see their doctor.
Yeah, and that's well-founded fear, I think.
Yeah, it's really, I suppose one of those unintended consequences.
Yeah, correct.
Anything from you guys? Sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say, is Tasmania an example of if people stand together and fight for a common cause, how things can be changed? Because obviously earlier this year we had the issue with people not being able to bring firearms into Tasmania to go hunting, and that was repealed. Is that an example?
Yeah, exactly.
Was SSAA involved in that?
Yeah, and tourism and hunting tourism is a subset of tourism. In Tasmania, that's a very important part of their economy. But by highlighting that, by getting involved, by explaining to people who are making decisions that I come from South Australia or Queensland and I go down to Tasmania because the hunting's really good. I visit my friends, we shoot together. All of those things. Then it has an effect. Like again, politicians for the most part are not trying to. Generally, they're trying to be reasonable, or generally trying to make good decisions. And a lot of the time, bad decisions are made because people just don't understand what it is that they're dealing with. And And when that is pointed out to them, what the consequences of their decision, they often are happy to change it.
Well, I'd like to think that was true when we focus our attention to Queensland. Because it seems, and I might have this all wrong, I'm not the expert around politics by any means, but it seems that they spend more time trying to make sure that they don't lose the votes that got them there than to change something that might piss a few of those people off by bringing in another group of people that might support them. So if we bring 10,000 people, 10,000 voters that are shooters, are they going to alienate 20,000 people that are antis? And we
that's
just
where you
go around this cycle.
That's where you come back to that calculation about who is going to vote, for what. Like, you may be anti-firearms, but are you going to change your vote on that? And you may be pro-firearms, but are you going to change your vote on that? And as long as our propensity to change our vote on that issue is higher than the antis, we'll have more influence. So, because a lot of people are for things but don't vote for them. I'm for climate change, or I'm for doing something about combating climate change, but they won't vote for it, or they won't pay for it. They don't want to, everyone wants something to be done about climate change, but no one wants to actually pay any money to do it. No one wants their power bills to go up, or no one wants, whatever it is.
Ute tax.
Yeah. And that's it. No one wants that. No one wants their car things to go up. They all, you look at last year, the top 10, you look at the top 10 selling cars in Australia, 8 of them were utes or SUVs.
Yeah.
And so they've gone and attacked the very cars that Australians want to buy.
It just does your head in. You got to wonder where it comes from. It's
instead of saying to people, well, you making their own decision, buy whatever car you want, but just know that this thing damages the environment more. I think people just say, yeah, but I want this car. And, in the end, people say they care about things, but then they act, the way they act or vote or whatever says something different. So that's why shooters being prepared to vote on shooting issues can have an outsized impact.
I think that's an excellent message for people to hear. Not something that I've considered, the people that are against us, well, not against us, so the people that are potentially opposed to it likely to vote for that. I think that's something I hadn't considered before, and that's an argument that's worth fleshing out a bit more over time. I think to educate the listeners on how to go about doing this. Yeah.
If you go back to 1996, when they actually introduced all of these reforms post Port Arthur, in the following election, 1998, particularly in Queensland, the Liberal Party lost a huge number of seats. They came very close to losing that 1998 election. And a lot of it was to do with firearms laws. And, there was the state election where One Nation, about that time, I think was either 98 or
14 seats they won.
Yeah, I think it might have been 97 in Queensland. Huge number of One Nation seats appeared. And a lot of that was related to firearms laws. So firearms shooters were angry about the way that laws were changed, and they did vote accordingly, and it almost changed the government. At the federal level, and it contributed to the loss of government in Queensland in 97. So you can have an effect. It's
that all that unintended consequences, isn't it? That was it.
That's
right. The whole rise of One Nation, all that was all fallout from that.
Yeah, but and you would have said almost all Australians would have agreed with those 96 changes, but once they were done, that was it. They were thinking about the economy or whatever else. And it was only the shooters that were upset with what had happened and did something about it. And that's so there can be consequences, and that there should be consequences.
I remember that, especially because I had a surrender firearms fought in 96, and I suppose there was a feeling that something had to be done, and it was off. It was I suppose the more calmer heads were saying, well, kind of wear it on the chin, things will go back to normal after a while, and I think, because that didn't happen, there was a build up of resentment, and I think that's continued. And I think what we're seeing now is an expression of that.
Yeah.
That things didn't go back to normal. We kept on the pressure kept on rolling on in different forms, and people are pushing it back. And what we've found is, a lot of the people that we speak to are new shooters and new hunters, and they approach hunting and shooting very differently than to the traditional model, if you will. They see hunting as, very much a lifestyle pursuit. There's something that they really, really want to be immersed in and want to engage in. And, so I kind of equate it to, the guys who, once upon a time, we all had push bikes, but then, once upon a time, we just rode bikes, and it didn't matter really what kind of bike was. It was, you just, now, if it's not $30,000 in carbon fiber and all that stuff, you kind of, you're on the outer, you're right at the back of the pack. And that kind of approach to hunting and shooting, I'm seeing more and more. So, I'm seeing guys who are willing to invest a lot of money in their hunting and shooting because it's something that they really want to do. It's a pursuit that they want to, and I think those people are really the ones that we need to reach at a political level, because they've got a lot invested in it,
Yeah, correct.
Well, there's a hell of a lot of money that I hope no one ever finds out how much it's worth in that safe of mine downstairs. And that's just, that's just the guns. Then there's the 4-wheel drive and the kayaks and the fishing rods and all that technology on top. That's right. That builds on top of it. So I think there's a real, that group of people which we speak to. And I mean, just had someone reach out a couple of days ago, just giving us thanks because they guy called Jake got his first goat in the Pilliga after reaching out to us and asking us for some advice. So, he's on his way.
Yeah.
He wants to hunt and shoot purely from a lifestyle point of view. And they're the people that we need to reach to say, okay, well, we need to protect that lifestyle. We need to protect
correct. And that's politically. The thing. And then this, going back to why I got into the SSAA, right, is that this it's always been part of my life growing up. And if people want it to be part of theirs, they should be able to. And the fact that a bunch of people seem to think that they can tell us that we shouldn't do it based on the way they see life and they see the world, not on any evidence about public safety or anything else, is really quite annoying.
Yeah. The public safety ones are, we've discussed it a heap of times. It's maddening.
The federal government's own statistics show that shooting is the safest sport in Australia. They have these stats that come out, and shooting is part of what they call the precision sports. So archery and shooting are in there, and they're down the bottom in terms of danger. Like everything else is above it. Football, fishing is the most dangerous. So you're at both ends. You're at the safest end and the most extreme and the most dangerous end. But
people look at fishing and go, "Oh, that's normal."
Yeah, that's right. But you look at the number of people who drown every year fishing, and like
get chomped on,
and everyone just that's just part of it. They're out in the sea.
Yeah.
Like the boat capsized. That's tragedy. Poor kids. But that's it. Like no one freaks out about it.
Okay. Queensland guys, we're ready to crack the nut.
Yeah, let's open this can of worms.
Lots
and lots of questions about, and that's almost all the same question. What is going on? What happens? What's going to happen? Tell us about what's going on.
Right. So a few years ago, towards the end of 2023, I'll go back to the structure so that everyone understands the structure of the organisation. So there are members. Members join their club. They're either their shooting club or they just join the SSAA directly. And when they join the SSAA, they're joining their state. So so you guys are all members of SSAA Queensland, and I'm a member of SSAA South Australia. Then the various states and territories are members of the national body, and we've only got 8 members, and it's each of the states and territories. In 2023, right at the end of 2023, Queensland started. I should explain too. The role of the national office is to provide services to the states. So where it's more efficient for the national office to do something, rather than each state to provide that service by themselves, that's where national does it. So for instance, it's cheaper for there to be one magazine that everybody gets than for each state to print their own magazine and employ their own staff and everything else to do that. And one of the things that the national office has done for the states for a long time is membership. So when you go to the website. You would join the SSAA, and then you would pay your money to the national. They would remit half of it to your state and keep half at national, and that's what's been happening for years. The end of 2023, Queensland decided to do their own membership services, and take that. So they started looking after their own members. We diverted. When you join up now, it says what state are you in. If you clicked on Queensland, it took you to the Queensland site, and you joined there. At the same time, they also set up their own insurance. So they, the firearms protection that people have, that you pay $35 and you get $25,000 worth of cover for your firearms, that was run by the National Office, and Queensland set up their own insurance arrangements and have been doing it since late 23 as well, or around that time. And progressively over the last year and a half, really, I suppose is the best way of putting it, they've had fewer services from the National Office, to the point that in June this year they stopped getting the national magazine, so the Australian Shooter magazine. They stopped. When they started doing their own membership services, they would provide us with how many they needed printed, and then they would separately send the names and addresses of the people that were going to receive that letter. The printed version of the shooter. They would send that separately to the mailing house, who would then send it out. So we didn't see the names and addresses of the people in Queensland who were getting the membership, getting the printed copy. So they've started their own magazine, The Report. They mail that out to their members, and they no longer get Australian Shooter. And they've got to the point where the National Office sets a service fee to provide them with services, and they've got to the point where they don't believe that they should be paying the fee that we want to charge, and we're sort of basically in dispute about that. So we're working to resolve that in some way, shape, or form. We'll be that will become clearer soon about how we are proceeding from there. But it's really come down to, in the end, that the Queensland state branch has wanted to be less and less involved with the national organisation, and has proceeded down that path.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think I think that's to the detriment of their members, but that's a decision that they and their members are going to have to make. About whether they want to be part of the national organisation or not. I know.
Well, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
To that point, I joined the Sporting Shooters, Association of Australia. I didn't join a Queensland organisation. I was part of, if I want to join a Queensland club, I join a Queensland club. Myself, I'm not alone in that I have multiple memberships for multiple things. I see the SSAA as being the large advocacy, organisation that I want to put some money behind from my membership point of view, because you look at things at a national level. We talk about things that you would talk to the federal government about. If I want to then become a member of a local hunting club, which I have been, then I go and spend some more money, and I do that as well. Without having a say in all of this, I'm now no longer part of a national organisation. I'm stuck at a state level. So what choices do I have? If I wanted to be part of SSAA, because that's my intention and that's where I want to spend my money, if I don't renew my membership, and not everyone's going to be the same as me, but this is my position. If I don't want to renew my membership and I want to reapply at SSAA National, however, can I do that?
Not at the moment.
How do I get what I want as a member?
Not at the moment, but we are working on a solution to that, and it's not far off. So,
okay.
So just to interject, to heighten the point that we join local clubs, I draw your attention to Ian's Putty, the Hellenic Hunters.
Oh, yes.
Which we all joined after we went down for the weekend with them.
I joined just so they invite me back for some more souvlaki.
And they've just sent me another kid.
Are you saying they spent all that time hunting and shooting and then serve lamb? Or did they... Were they using...
Lots of lamb.
They didn't not serve lamb. There was no part.
There is
2 days. There was no lamb. There was just there's a lamb conveyor belt.
You don't bring venison to a deer hunt. You don't bring fish when you go fishing. You bring something else. And
I thought it was
that is fine.
bananas, but anyway.
And look,
yeah.
it is they do no lamb. My word.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness!
So, yeah.
I ate my weight in lamb.
They've just sent me another care package of hoodies and long sleeves and short sleeves.
Oh, good.
That hoodie's amazing. The Helena
Well,
Cummins hoodie is just the best.
I'm going to be giving a few away because I've got a bundle of them now. So
well, so this is us supporting. It's not even my local club or Mark's local club, but we like to support these clubs because they offer their members something wonderful.
Yeah,
which is what they do. I don't, whether this is the wrong way to look at it or not, Tom. I don't see SSAA as a local hunting club.
Yeah.
I see them as this great organisation that advocates for our rights and has the power of numbers and the dollars that come with the power of numbers to pay for professionals to help protect our sport. That's how I see the SSAA, and that's what I want to give my money to them for. For me, it's not to access ranges. If I go to the range personally, it's to sight in a rifle a couple of times a year, and probably more than most people I sight in rifles because we do a lot of work in demo gear. So, we're constantly changing things around. So I've got to go to a range for that. Mark has a membership to be able to do that. I just pay my, my non-member fee and go to the range 3 times a year. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You get my point. I just don't like it. It smells bad. It's not right. I didn't get a choice. Yeah. Fix it, Tom. Fix it.
Well, we always describe the organisation as a bottom up, so members up organisation rather than a top down, and that is the role of national office is to be the national service provider to the states, and one of those services has been national lobbying. And the good thing has been that when the SSAA has walked into a meeting with a minister, they've got 210,000 members behind them saying, right. And they can say, around the country we operate, we represent blah blah blah, and no other organisation can say that. No other shooting organisation can say that. There are lots of good shooting organisations out there, but none of them are as big as us. And as you just said, you've got that's the professional operation at a level that a lot of other organisations can't deliver just because of numbers and everything else. And I think that's an important thing for all shooters around the country, in all states, that the fact that there's a national body that can negotiate, or at least represent them is very important. And I think the national body is weakened if that breaks up, but the states that break away are also weakened in my view. And I can, I know from my role previously as a minister that you just don't want everyone purporting to be the national voice of shooting or whatever else. That you've just got to, you want to deal with one group who can ably and effectively represent the members, of that, in that industry. So you don't want 5 steel making associations. You just want one, and you want to be able to know that when you negotiate with them, that you are, there's not 1,000 people going to go off and do their own thing. And it's the same with any organization, and shooting is no different. So if you've got all of these groups running around to purport to represent shooting across the country, it actually weakens the voice of shooters everywhere in all organisations. And I mean, one of the things that we've started to be involved in this year is along with CIFA, which is the Shooting Industry Forum of Australia, the Shooting Industry Foundation Australia. We met with a bunch of the other shooting organisations. So ACTA, which is the Australian Clay Target Association, the Deer Hunting Association was there, the IPSC. I don't want to forget some of them, but there were quite a few shooting groups. Sporting Clays were there, and all coming together so we can actually start to talk with a little bit more unity, and start to put our views across in a more common way. But I don't see how Queensland members are better off because the Queensland State Office is now representing themselves to the federal government rather than the national office. I'm sure they will. Do a good job putting their point of view, but it's not a national point of view; it's a Queensland point of view. Yeah. And maybe that's enough for some people, but I think it weakens the whole.
It's not a unified front. at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
that's
I mean,
right.
you
Yeah.
want to lead states and territories at that table.
Yeah, I think so.
And conversely, if you do not want to negotiate in good faith, it's the easiest way to achieve that by simply saying, "Well, you guys don't even know you guys don't even know who you are. So why am I talking to you?"
Yes.
And I mean that's what was used in WA, wasn't it? They would say,
Yeah.
you guys can't even get along, so why should we listen to you? And so they could basically use that.
Yeah.
Use that against you by saying, you're not a united front, so why should we speak to you? How do I know what you're telling me is right, not the next person coming in the room? So it creates a lot of problems. One of the interesting things that it's been said about it is that it's the the big end of town type of the old bigger end of town argument, and we were involved in a national hunting association that. In fact, Queensland was the very, very, very small end of town, and we knew that. So I understand that logic, but I can't see how that logic applies here. It's not like little old Queensland's being neglected type thing.
No. I mean, Queensland have a strong. Like in terms of the organisation, Queensland make up about 30%, roughly 30% of the numbers of the organisation, and they're a significant. It's actually a little bit higher than that, higher than 30%, but they're a good chunk of the numbers of the association, and they are important. Yep. I mean, Queensland is a shooting state. Probably along with Tasmania, I'd say, and Territory. They're sort of the big in terms of hunting culture and everything. They're the big three: Queensland, Territory, and Tasmania, and so they're very important and historically very important. But I think they're weakened by pulling away from the national body, and I think we're weakened by them pulling away from the national body. And I know, like from my own experience as a minister, there was nothing you love more than if you've got a controversial thing that you're trying to do, and one of your you'd have 2 or 3 bodies from the industry all saying one thing, and then suddenly out of nowhere some other industry body comes in and says something different. Well, you just have a press conference and you stand next to the person that's saying the one that agrees with you, saying the thing that agrees with you. And suddenly on the news that night, the voters are seeing industry agreeing with the minister when in fact 3/4 of them don't. But the minister managed to find someone that did, so there's the risk of that. And I'm not saying Queensland are going to go and do that, but there's the more you splinter, the more likely that is to occur. Put it that way.
Totally. Yeah.
Has there been an impact to Queensland, I guess, membership after the splinter? Has it gone up, gone down, stayed the same?
I don't know because we're not seeing their membership numbers. So
I'd be interested to see what that looks like once there's choice.
Yeah,
that'll tell a story.
Yeah, that's right, and that'll be that's a question people need to ask. What services do they need? What do they want out of SSAA and the various states and the national body, and they'll make their decisions. So, but I mean, I'm personally very keen to have as many people in the national organisation through as possible, or be part of organisations that are part of the national organisation, and. I want to get us, I'm very proud of the work that my staff do to get the Australian shooter out every month. And I want more people to see that. And that's a good way of us, getting the emails to them every twice a week and getting the shooter to them once a month is a great way of us communicating to our members. It's a great way of letting people know what's going on all around the country. And I want more people to have access to that.
Yeah, well, as Australia's greatest living gun rider, it's very important to me. I'll give you the drop.
Now you're branching out into video too, I'm told.
Well, jack of all trades. I suppose that all jokes aside, that was a funny one. I suppose for most people, the crunch point is the magazine. That's what you feel, mate. The ranges haven't changed. It's the magazine. Is there any update on what's happening around the magazine for people?
So at the moment, there's a few things that can go there. So Queensland members can still, until the end of this year, you'll still be able to look at the digital version. So go onto the website, the ssaa.org.au, go to publications and see Australian Shooter, put in your membership number, and just follow the instructions, and you'll be able to read the digital version that comes out. At the start of the month. If you're just looking at it at the start of the month, you'll find the magazine there, and you can still read that. And then the other thing you can do is to ring our national office, the membership office, and ask to be put on the list, so that when we have the option or the way for you to receive the magazine, then you can go and do that. You can buy a subscription. It's on our website at the moment. You can buy a subscription to the Australian Shooter, but it's it's the full price of membership. But you don't get the benefits of being a member, but you still will get the magazine mailed to you. Or the other option is you can get it from news agents, and if you want to go and buy it in the meantime. But the most important thing is to contact our membership office and leave your name with them and an email address, and we will get back to you as soon as we have those options sorted. Then we'll get back to you with them, and you can make your choice from there.
Gents, any other questions?
No, not on that. I think we can't push too hard on it because there's still decisions being made. But it's good to get an update and a bit more perspective, because I think the majority of Queenslanders will get updates through the Report magazine of what's happening, and there's no sort of balance coming. So it's good to hear that.
Yeah, they're not. Well, they put their side of the story, and that's their right to do that in their magazine, I suppose.
So let's pivot to some positive stuff. So what's other than those challenges? What's some of the things that are that you're interested in introducing, Tom? That that are going to actually benefit us members?
Yeah, so there's a lot of change happening at the moment. Very soon, probably by the time this podcast is out, we'll start receiving. I'm taking a risk here, but I assume you guys will put this out in October.
It'll be
coming out next week. What are we getting for free, Tom?
So in October, we'll be rolling out our digital membership card. You will get an email sent to you. So when you renew your membership, you'll get an email sent to you. Or I think we're going to start sending out our compilation of individualized links has gone better than expected. So we'll be able to just email people a link to their digital membership card.
Digital membership card?
Yeah, and then you'll download it and put it on your phone. So that'll be...
It can be in your wallet.
Yeah, sorry, put it in your wallet and your phone, and it'll look like that. I don't know if you can see that very well.
We got that. Yep.
Yeah. So that's
just writing down your member number.
Yeah, that's good. It's almost impossible to read. That's why we might have to change that so that it gets a little bit bigger. It's like, maybe it's just me. I'm getting old enough to need reading glasses, and it's like now
I'm trying to read my card, and I need to get a magnifying glass.
Yeah,
so now I'm getting tap and copy.
Now I'm getting angry at things on my phone because I can't read them. It's like I'm turning into a grumpy old man. But so the digital.
Hold on, I'm getting there too. Look,
that's on the plastic card at least.
Oh, you old bastards! Carry on.
So that's the digital card. We will have within the next 12 months. We'll have our membership portal up and running in a way that people will be able to change their own address, and those member details and things like that. So it'll be a little bit more interactive. We're refreshing the merchandise line a little bit. So I don't know if you might have seen some of the new T-shirts and things coming in. So we're just trying to freshen up our merchandise line a little bit. And then it's really just a matter of trying to make the organisation run as smoothly as we can so that we can, maximise those services. We still have our insurance cover, which is pretty good value. We've still got our firearms protection, which is still good value. And interestingly, I think you guys were mentioning like how much money people spend on firearms. What we're seeing is, incredible spending on optics. Commensurate claims on losing optics. I just bought a new 308, and that's
Did you buy the?
$1,700, $2,000 rifle. Be very easy to put a $4,000 scope on it without
very easy.
without blinking.
Easy.
In terms of the options that are out there, if you're putting a thermal scope on it, as I'm considering, it's hard to spend less than $3,000. Just on a. So the amount of money that is going into scopes at the moment is unbelievable.
And the options that are out there, we've been using the Beretta BRX platform for some time. It's their straight pull rifle and interchangeable barrels. So not only am I buying the platform, so I got it in 3006, and it's got a $2,000 or $3,000 scope sitting on top of it. So when you replace the barrel, it has the picky rail attached to the barrel assembly, so the scope in the barrel comes off. So that was my long distance rifle barrel over there, and then I slide on the 223 with the night vision, and then I slide that one off, and I slide on the 9.3 by 62, and I put a aim point on it. So one platform now, and you're now optioning all of this stuff up. Because you can. Just the dollars and options that people are putting into their rifles now. It's just
well, that's a nice rifle, that BRX. So we
it's beautiful.
We had one down for the Lefty Special.
I saw that.
And I was very impressed with it. Like in terms of like the speed of the action. Once you get used to that straight pull action, it was the same with the Savage that we tried as well. Once you got used to it, it's very quick, very quick.
I felt a little bit selfish on our first Northern Territory trip because Mark and John and I were walking up on dams, and I had my first 3 or 4 rounds away before I could yell pig. And these fellas with their bolt actions were not getting in on the action. I
thought you had a BRX.
He didn't.
He does now.
I did.
Now.
So the first trip, I took a Sacco 85 bolt action,
Right.
and now I travel the double gun. Nothing's faster than that.
You only get 2 shots though, Mark.
It's fast 2 shots though.
But people are spending a lot of money on their gear, and I think appropriate insurance is a great thing to be able to offer. The insurance, though, I think we talked about this a little bit, probably not on the podcast. It extends beyond firearms, right? There's a whole range of insurance there that people should have a look at.
So there's public liability is the product. The products that you automatically get as part of being a member. A public liability, $20 million worth of cover, income protection insurance, and accident insurance. So you get all those 3 automatically. Then there's
can you tell me about the accident one just quickly?
So
if you have an accident.
If you have an accident while you're shooting, then there are payments for various types of injuries. It's a lot like when I play rugby, or I used to when I was younger, and if you break an ankle, they'll pay you $5,000 or whatever it is. We have that. We have a similar type of.
The old I need a gun, so I'll hack my finger off trick. Yeah, I got you.
That's right. Yeah, that trick. We're seeing it all the time these days. So there's that. There's the accident protection. There's the income protection, and then there's the public liability. Then on top of that, you can spend your $35 and get your firearms protection. And then we have a broker. So there's a SSAA insurance broker, and I think Mark might have used them for his business's insurance, but they tend not to do like car and house insurance because that's such a competitive market that you can find a good deal on the internet with that. But for more specialized insurances, they're very good at finding good deals for people. Yeah.
I think they do business car though. There is a few that because I looked at them because I was in changing insurances. Yeah. So they didn't do the health insurances, and I don't mean like a monthly health insurance, but things like trauma and things like that. They didn't do that, but there was other ones that they do around insurances. Yeah, so they're worth asking the question.
Yeah, that's right.
They certainly gave me a really good price on my business public liability and indemnity insurance. So they were really good on that. So I went with them. Yeah, so they're the broker who brokered the policy.
And Tom, tell me if you know offhand, is there a level of cover that you can get that covers you for your equipment in the event of an accident, loss, theft, something like that?
So yeah, the firearms protection does that. So it covers your rifle and things, permanent attachments to the rifle and scopes and things like that. So, but other
But
gear,
not my bino rig, my binos, my pack, and I know
No,
you're probably not going to lose all that stuff. But there was an
that
incident
would be
recently.
that would be worth ringing them about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The insurance
Yeah.
brokers, but that's not part of the firearms protection. No.
And that's applicable for Queensland members because doesn't SSAA
Queensland members,
Queensland have its own?
Queensland members can still join like SSAA. Like you can still get SSAA insurance. Yes. They have their own firearms protection arrangement and their own public liability arrangements as part of their membership. But if you want, Queensland members can absolutely ring the brokers and get deals and work their way through. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
It's probably worth mentioning too that we've done some work quite closely with you guys over the last few weeks out of the territory. We did, is it 4 tip videos or 5?
4 or 5 now. Yep.
The last tip video, which is a gear review, is actually much more of a in-depth review than a tips because it goes for about 30 minutes. And when I looked at it, I realised how tired we were.
Broken.
That was the last
Are
night.
we really
wasn't it?
going to do this
last
tonight?
night. We got like, we better do this. Come on,
All
let's
the
go.
beer was drunk. All of the pigs were chased.
We're like,
so tired.
flogged out. But we did a series of videos. That was really good fun working with you guys and that, especially your comms people. We're on TikTok now.
Yeah, we are. We are. We don't
No,
have any
we are.
platform.
You put us on TikTok.
Well, is that right?
Yeah. We
Basically,
weren't on TikTok before.
We weren't on TikTok until
I think we have 13 followers on TikTok. That's not our strongest. It's not our strongest platform.
Well, when we went to the territory, we weren't on TikTok, but when we were up there, we became on TikTok.
Yeah, well, that's good.
We all got the notification as welcome to your TikTok account.
I'm glad they've been helpful. They're good. There's a good gang down there. I mean, that's the other thing we are trying to do is become more digital and really moving into the YouTube and the Facebook and trying to be a bit more instantaneous in our reach with members. We regularized our emails. So whereas we were sending out emails a bit haphazardly and just on a needs basis, now we do 2 a week, and you would have the Wednesday update and the weekend update. Yeah,
is
that's
actually
right.
really good.
And people can from anywhere in Australia can sign up to that, and you don't even need to be a member to get them if you don't want to. We do have member only emails that go out, but the Wednesday and the Sunday email are for anyone who wants them, and that's growing quite. Actually, our list is growing quite rapidly there, and but that's a really good way of us communicating with our members. And
you don't need to. You just need to.
You just sign up
subscribe.
Just subscribe to the.
We're gonna have to tell people that because again, that's how we found out about the videos. Remember? We got an email.
We got sent an email.
We had Starlink, so we had comms, and we went, hang on, wait, look at this.
Yeah, you sent a screenshot, and there I was.
That's right. That's right. There's a screen.
Yeah. So we So that's our. So yeah, we're trying to just be a bit more digital and a bit more instant rather than. I mean, the thing about magazines, as you would know, Mark, having submitted articles and things, is that there's actually quite a intricate logistical chain to get a magazine to someone's letterbox, and the planning is all mapped out for the year. The magazine goes to print maybe halfway through the month before, so by say we're in September now, so October's has been sent to the printer. It is back, is in the process of being mailed, collated and everything else. And from the very last days of September through to the first days of October, that will be landing in letterboxes. But what that means is you have to have your articles written a month before it even it goes to print, and there's always the danger of being a little bit out of date or just not being able to knowing that there will be a relevant event by the time people have got the magazine, but not being able to know the outcome or to report on it.
it's a challenge that I've mentioned a number of times. You know, you've got to kind of, I'm writing 3 months in the future.
Yeah. And so at least the emails gives a way of and the socials gives us a way of being very instant in the information that we're providing to people. So there'll be more of that.
It reached us at the territory, but funnily enough, on the way out of our trip, we stopped in at the property owner's residence to say goodbye and thank you. And she said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I saw you guys on my SSAA email." I said, "Here were you guys up there talking about stuff," and I was like, "They're on my property." we were 60 kilometers away from her, way over the back of the land. But I think she got a bit of a laugh out of it.
It is amazing, though, isn't it? I mean, to think
exactly right
in the most remote parts of Australia, where not that long ago you couldn't even get a phone call, and now you are uploading almost live, and sending video in, and by the time
HD video all the way to you, all the way back to the listeners on the same property.
Yeah, and by the time you are coming out from the camp, people are talking about it, and I saw this and I saw it. It's easy to take it for granted, but it is an incredible feat, really.
More to come.
Yes,
more to come.
Exactly right.
I'm actually going to give a mention in the column, because it was really funny. We were talking about we were talking about the magazine and writing and that stuff, and she's going, "Oh, I didn't realise that it all came together there." Very strange, very kind of odd, very nice, but really, really odd that we were kind of all as you said, this whole thing kind of synced up as we drove 60k through bull dust to get to the front gate type of thing.
After 3,000 k's.
That's right.
And it's like, and the video's been and done, and you're still pulling bull dust out of the
That's
vehicle.
right. That's right.
And talking more of it. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. All right. Is there anything else, guys, we want to cover, or we'll call it a conversation?
Pretty good.
Yeah. I think it's great.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. It's been great. Good luck with the podcast. I'm enjoying it. Listening in.
Great. Yeah. One day we'll have a professional outfit.
I think
figure out how audio works before we start.
I think it's fun because it resembles the name. It resembles the label. It says Hunter's Campfire, and it's that sort of a conversation where you can go backwards and forwards. And it's good. I'm enjoying it.
Great.
I appreciate that.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
that's great.
Awesome. Thanks very much. We'll talk again. Hopefully nothing too controversial pops up, but if it does, we'll call you.
Please feel free anytime.
Okay.
Thanks, mate.
Good night,
Catch you later.
See you guys.
Rightio, that's a wrap from the team at the Hunters Campfire. We hope you had a laugh, learned something useful, or at least were a little bit entertained. And you feel a little bit more pumped up for your next hunting, shooting, or outdoor misadventure. As always, a massive thanks for the support from our friends at SSAA and Beretta Australia. Whether you're out there chasing game, telling lies to your mates around the fire, or just trying to remember where you left your boots. Stay wild, stay curious, and for the love of all things blaze, stay safe, so we can see you back around the fire next time.